So, welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Shubhda Chaudhary, and today we are at a very crucial juncture to discuss a very interesting book that has been co-authored by our guest, which is called as Algorithms of Resistance. And before we delve into why algorithms of resistance is important for all of us, we are so dependent on artificial intelligence, be it Alexa, Siri, Uber, Blinkit, or any other form of, online app. But we still don't know what artificial intelligence really is or what it means. What are the algorithms? And a lot of books have been written before, capital surveillism, and so many other things. So today we have a very honorable guest with us, whose name is Tiziano Bonini. He is associate professor in sociology of culture and communications in the Department of Social, Political, and Cognitive Sciences at University of Siena in Italy. And I hope all of you know where is Italy. He has written and co-authored many papers, many topics. Few of them are: it was very hard for me to keep doing that job, understanding troll farms working in the Arab world. Is connecting from my smartphone a privilege I do not have? Mobile connection and disconnection practices among migrants and asylum seekers in 3 migrant reception centers at Sicily. Latformed: how streaming algorithms and artificial intelligence are shaping music cultures. His current co-authored book, Algorithms of Resistance, has been published by MIT, which is the everyday fight against platform power. Then, interfacing the space of flows and spaces of places in the platform society, 10 years of Airbnb in Florence. So, before we start, let me give you a little bit of hindsight that how the book starts, and that is very interesting. The book starts from a story, and the story seems very personal. It is a story of Stefano, who is 43 years old. He has a daughter and a partner. He works as a photographer and video maker. He lives in Livorno, a seaport city in Tuscany, Italy. For many years, he has been working as an art photographer and from time to time for advertising. During the first COVID-19 lockdown, he lost many job opportunities and he decided to download the Deliveroo app on his smartphone to start making home deliveries. We all have so many, whenever we order from an app, we have delivery agents who come to our house to deliver, right? We have at-home services, be it of Urban Company and others. So now the point is that the story goes that flash forward a month later, Stefano tells us that he is no longer happy to use Deliveroo. On the contrary, he is a bit worried because sometimes he finds himself stuck on the Deliveroo app to check if there are any free shifts that can be assigned to him. He feels strangely dependent on the app and he doesn't like that. His feeling of dependence is similar to that experienced by other gig workers, such as Uber drivers. The experience of this job feels like an addiction because it feels nice at first, but then it's really bad. In the meantime, the available shifts have decreased and Stefano doesn't earn as much money as he did before. And there are many other repercussions, as for example, when you have delivery agents coming from Zomato or Swiggy or any other platform that you order from, you'll notice that there is a delivery fee that is calculated according to the distance that is covered by them. And if they are late, they do not get that commission. It is a very sad reality of gig workers right now in India also. So the book goes on to a very important, crucial point, which is our bodies and actions are continuously calculated and transformed into flows of data that feed the platform's algorithm, be it any platform, even this. We are constantly subjected to a process of stripping and extracting biometric, biographical, demographic data that in the era of big data has been called as datafication. but which, as Colin Koopman has illustrated, has a long history behind it. It's not the first time that data has been collected. You go to make your passport or your Aadhaar card or any kind of identity. Your biometrics have become your identification, even when you cross airports. There has been scholarly research by Nick Caldry and Ulysses Magius calling at data colonialism, while Shoshana Zuboff attributes it as instrumentarian power capable not only of extracting from simple being in the world a behavioral surplus, but also of automating our choices. Our online platforms, which are silent when it comes to, whatever conversation you're having, suddenly you'll see a advertisement popping out on Instagram regarding it. Sometimes I even think about something and I see an advertisement popping up on Instagram or any other social media, which makes me very apprehensive that did they enter my brain? So I'm sure that all of these questions are important for everyone over here. And with this, I would like to warmly welcome our esteemed guest speaker of today, Professor Tiziano Bonini, who took time from his schedule to address all the scholars who are present over here. And we are very thankful for the privilege of your time, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shubhda, for the invitation. I'm very happy to talk with you about our book. I will try to sketch the main argument of our essay. And this book started. We wanted to write this book because we were not satisfied with these monolithic accounts of platform power. What is platform power? When we use this word platform power, we mean the power that every kind of commercial platforms, mostly Western platforms, but also not only Western platforms. So every kind of commercial delivery, food delivery platform, from the Indian one to from the Indonesian one to the Western one, in every kind of economic sector. This is not only about delivery or gig working, but it's about culture like Netflix or what. Platforms have the power to recommend, to suggest, to shape not only our cultural consumption, but our work, politics, etc. And this is something that I think most of us really understood so far. And in the last years, though, there came out a lot of accounts of this platform power, like, for example, the beautiful essay from Shoshana Zuboff, Surveillance Capitalism, or from José van Dijk, Platform Society. All these kind of accounts, they were extremely useful, but they, especially Shoshana Zuboff essay, they lacked a dimension in our perspective. So they were focused on platform power, but not on people power. So on what people can do in the face of this power. What is the space of agency that is still available to the people, to the users, to the ordinary people? So this was our aim and our focus. So because when we started writing on this book and doing research for this book, we didn't find any kind of research that could focus, that could address the user's agency. What the people can do in the face of this power. Then we started doing field research. And we were doing field research in different domains. My co-author, Emiliano Treré, is a scholar of political activism and social movements, and I was more a scholar on cultural industries and gig working. And we realized from the very beginning of our fieldwork, that there was something going on. So that when we start talking with the people, interviewing delivery couriers, or interviewing influencers on Instagram, or interviewing political activists using Twitter, at a certain point, they started telling us about these techniques and tactics they used to game the algorithm, to circumvent the algorithm, to cheat the algorithm. And these moved us to, pushed us to want to know more about it. So what does it mean with gaming the algorithm, cheating the algorithm? And then we did a lot of desk research on press articles that were talking about gaming the algorithm. And we did a little of research on the few academic literature that were on this issue. And then we started doing fieldwork, ethnographic fieldwork among the gig workers, especially the food delivery sector. And we realized, we discovered that the tactics, the ways of gaming the algorithms of these platforms were a lot, were full of, the users were full of, they were very creative at inventing new ways of circumventing the effects of the algorithm on their life, on their everyday life. And we started to understand. Yeah.
Okay.
If you go to the following, the next one. So what this book does, it shifts the focus to the practices and tactics created by people to cope and live with algorithmic power. It contrasts monolithic accounts of platform power and automation. We do not say that platform power is not dangerous and is not huge. Is it? It is. But we want to try to describe also the other side of this relationship between humans and platforms. So we want to put to sketch a more complex and nuanced portrait of our relationship with the platforms. So this book explores algorithmic agency, what we call algorithmic agency and resistance across gig work, cultural consumption and production, and politics. It sheds light on how gig workers, content creators, and activists across the world, because we have done different kind of fieldworks, are developing tactics of algorithmic resistance by appropriating and repurposing the same algorithms that are controlling their lives. And finally, it reveals how forms of algorithmic agency and resistance are endemic and mundane, and how the platform society is a contested battleground of contrasting forces. Here I am just anticipating a little bit the end of the book, no? But I'm saying that we want to highlight that our relationship with platform power is not frictionless. Is not going on without friction. There are a lot of frictions, and there is a lot of resistance going on. Next one. These are very brief overview of what we did in the field, what was our methodology. We mixed ethnography with participant observation, with interviews, with different kind of workers, content creators, and political activists in different countries, India included, because we had a research assistant that worked with us and doing interviews with the Indian food delivery workers. Next one. So we can skip this one. So we showed different kind of practices, of media practices. K-pop, Korean pop fans that try to game the Spotify charts, political activists that are trying to game Twitter algorithm to gain visibility, gig workers chatting on private online groups and sharing tricks how to game the algorithm, Instagram content creators creating engagement groups to build their visibility together. So what do these practices have in common? And we could also mention other kind of practices, but we focused in our book on these kind of practices. So, and I can just give you a brief example of these tactics. For example, Korean pop fans were able to inflate, to artificially grow the number of clicks and plays of their favorite idol band, Korean pop band, in order to, just for the fun of pushing their band on the top of the playlist, of the Spotify playlist. So it was a labor of love from the fans. They were not gaining money from this, but they were trying to they orchestrated an army of fans, thousands of fans that in the first 24 hours of the release of the album from their favorite band, they clicked constantly on these songs to push the visibility of this band up. So they understand how the algorithm of Spotify builds visibility or attributes visibility to artists, and they try to hack this mechanism. Another example from the political domain, political social movements from the right and from the left, we discovered that this is not something that belongs only to far-right movements or only to progressive movements. This happens everywhere. Are trying to not only amplifying their voice by orchestrating, for example, using hashtag activism, using an hashtag and tweeting a lot, using that hashtag to amplify their voice, like, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement or Me Too movement or many others that have used these techniques. But, for example, in the case of the far right, in many cases of the far right movements, they try to game the algorithm in order to be invisible, in order not to be detected by the algorithm and not to be banned or shadow banned.
Yeah.
So, for example, in this case, in the second example, this is a tweet from an Italian far-right activist that used a specific code of letters and numbers in order to insult a leftist woman politician, but not being detected by the algorithm or the moderation of Twitter. Or, for example, in the case of the war, the genocidal war of Israel against the Gaza Strip, recently Twitter were shadow banning all the tweets, including the word Palestine, all the pro-Palestine supporters on Twitter. And they are understanding this mechanism of moderation held by Twitter. Supporters of pro-Palestine cause replaced the name Palestine with the icon of the watermelon. So that the algorithm, the moderation algorithm, the automated moderation of Twitter was not able to understand that tweet was talking about Palestine. So these are very common techniques that try to circumvent the power that platforms have in disciplining and distributing visibility online. And we call them algorithmic evasion. The next one, or algorithmic hijacking, when users on Twitter are able to spread unrelated content, spam, or negative sentiments to pollute a conversation around an hashtag on Twitter. Next one. And these are very few examples belonging to the political domain. But for example, if we go further, the next slide.
Yes.
Yeah, this is an example from our fieldwork in the case of food delivery couriers. We explored and we started this fieldwork for more than 1 year, between 2020 and 2021, in 5 different countries. And we found very similar practices around these different countries, from Milan to New Delhi, and from Spain to London to Mexico City. We found very similar practices. And we found that couriers, food delivery couriers, first of all, they organize themselves into WhatsApp and Telegram private groups in order to support themselves. These platforms try to discipline their bodies and their work and their action in a very vertical and individualistic way. No, they organize, the app is organized, and the job is organized to put the couriers against each other, to make them compete against each other. Who is the quickest courier? Who is the one that is able to ride the most? But the couriers, or some of them at least, understood this mechanism and are trying to react using cooperation and solidarity. And in these private online groups, they exchange tips and tricks and solidarity. They organize solidarity actions and support among themselves, but they also share their understandings of algorithms. So they build themselves together in a cooperative way, a collective knowledge of the algorithm, how this algorithm attributes the orders, the deliveries, because the algorithm, the function of these algorithms are black boxed by the platform, and they try to reverse engineering this mechanism. And we discovered at least 2 different kinds of tactics: individual tactics and collective tactics. Collective tactics are orchestrated at collective actions that are able to really examples of resistance against food delivery platforms. They even organize sabotage actions or coordinated rejections of orders. If you go to the next one, the next one again. Next. Here is an example of how Italian couriers are able to exchange working hours, even if the app doesn't afford this functionality. So the app doesn't afford the riders to exchange working hours, but they found a roundabout to cheat this function and to exchange the working hours. So we discovered a lot of solidarity, even in a digital environment that was strictly designed and intentionally designed to make the people compete, make the workers compete against each other. So again, next one. Very briefly, because we agreed on a 20 minutes presentation, what do these practices, I just mentioned here very few examples from our book, but what do these practices have in common? For us, they represent different manifestations of human agency in the face of platform power. And we call it algorithmic agency. Next one. What is algorithmic agency? We define it as the reflexive ability of humans to exercise power over the outcome of an algorithm. So people are still able to shape algorithmic outcomes, are not only shaped by them, as Shoshana Zuboff argues, and that all the theories of platform power just argue that this platform power is determining human agency and shaping cultural consumption, how we organize politics, culture, and work. But we also demonstrate that people are able to strike back and to shape these algorithmic infrastructures. This doesn't mean that that's okay. No, there is nothing dangerous going on. Of course, we recognize that there is a huge power imbalance in the relationship between platforms and users, but we have to recognize that users are not just passive subjects, that are not just subjugated or surrendering to this platform power. There is a lot of resistance and a lot of solidarity going on in very different realms, even in those contexts, like in Naples and in Italy and in some peripheral cities in India. We interviewed some riders, some couriers that didn't have a formal cultural scholar educational background, and they didn't know what an algorithm was. But even if they didn't understood what an algorithm was, they were still able to game this algorithm, to cheat him, to find some tactics, some creative, to share and use this kind of tactics. In order, the first aim was just to survive, to make ends meet at the end of the day. So it was not a structural kind of resistance that was aimed at politically subvert this power. Most of these tactics were what the American anthropologist and political scientist James Scott called everyday resistance or micro resistance. But, and we can go to the very end of these slides, the last three. You can skip all of them until the end, because we do not have the time to delve into
No, you can continue, sir, no problem. I'll edit according to I'll cut different parts.
You can go a little bit further. Next. So I will synthesize all this next to the end, because I want to talk about the beyond the moral economy. I will synthesize it toward the end. So stay on this on the previous one. So what we understood from the fieldwork is that these everyday forms of resistance are the beginning of something more structural. So is the necessary condition for the users to understand themselves as exploited and to start doing something against this platform power. And most of them begin to when do they practice these tactics of game the algorithm? When we discovered that all the people that were practicing these tactics and that were considering themselves fair, even if the platform and the terms of service of the platform considers all these practices as unfair, unlegitimate, even in some cases criminal. No? So they deemed these practices as just and fair because, in our view, they embraced a different moral economy from the moral economy of the platform. For moral economy, what does it mean? Moral economy. We mobilize this concept that was first used by British historian, cultural historian Edward Palmer Thompson in the 70s, when he described the riots and the mobs. And the English mobs that mobilized against the surge and the rise in the price of the bread in the 70s and in the 17th and 18th centuries in UK, because Thompson said that these riots were not irrational protests or collective actions, but they were rooted in a different moral economy. So, according to him, the riots for the price of the bread were stemming from the idea that bread, for example, is a basic good that cannot be linked to the market logic.
Yeah.
So the price of bread cannot be driven by the market logic. So they destroyed and they rioted in order to reaffirm this idea of bread as a basic good, and that the price of bread needed to stay low, because they were, according to Thompson, connected to a different moral economy that was not the moral economy of the rising market logic. So we found a similar path, a similar pattern in our fieldwork, because if we look at if we read the terms of service of platforms like Twitter or Instagram or Uber or Deliveroo, we found that they are centered on neoliberal values, the free market, individualism, consumerism, data extractivism, optimization of performance, self-entrepreneurship. They promote self-entrepreneurship. They promote meritocratic ideology. They promote authentic competition between users. While on the other hand, we found that many users were sharing mutual support, cooperation between users, struggle organization, strong sense of solidarity, mutual support, and these kind of values were driving their actions. So when they were organizing themselves together in order to reject the orders, to collectively reject the orders in order to push the algorithm to increase the price of the order, they were doing that according to their specific moral economy that was not aligned to the moral economy of the platform. So there was these two contrasting moral economies that were clashing, and this clash is exactly that friction that I mentioned at the beginning, no, of this talk. The relationship between users and platforms is not frictionless. Is not frictionless just because the moral values of the platform that are encoded in their terms of service, in their community standards, are not always the same of the values of the workers and the users.
Yeah.
So there is a space. If we go to the next slide, and the next one, still the next one. Okay, still the next one. Go to the matrix, to the big matrix. Next again. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay, this is the end. No, we can go back to the previews. Sorry. Still. Again, still. Yeah, the next one before. Next one, still one. Yeah. So if we put together this idea of different kind of moral economies, and we merge these continuum between platform moral economies and user moral economies, and we mix this continuum, we merge with our theoretical idea of the existence of a user agency. So humans have the agency, have still some power to react, to face platform power. Of course, we called this agency algorithmic agency, but we also distinguished between a strategic algorithmic agency and a tactical algorithmic agency. This means that some people have more power and more agency than others to exert their power. No, there were some people have more economic capital, more money, more time, more technical expertise in order to react, to circumvent, and to cheat these algorithms, while there are other people that have less money, less time, less technical skills, so their agency is diminished. They can only react on a daily basis, on a very short-term reaction. So if we merge together all these dimensions, what we get is this matrix that is our theoretical framework, our theoretical contribution of the book. So we have 4 different manifestations of agency. Oh, on some kind of agency, or for example, that humans can exercise agency aligned to the moral economies of the platform. So they are not contesting these values, but they can, for example, pay for improve their visibility without resisting, without contesting these platforms. And this is a kind of agency that is not resistance, of course, because we also say that not all the manifestations of agency are at the same time also a kind of resistance. So acts of resistance can be different from agency. Agency and resistance are not the same thing.
Yeah.
But on the left side of this matrix, of this frame, we have those kind of those manifestations of agency that can also be called resistance. So maybe this contribution on this frame is more. It seems that we want to cut the air in 4 pieces, and we academics focused on theoretical, but this is not the case. So why this is not just theorizing for the sake of it? Because by demonstrating that there are at least 4 ideal types manifestation of agency, we demonstrate and we empirically demonstrated, grounded in our data, we demonstrate that people have different options, were still different options, and that some of them, many users still do not contest platform moral values and platform code, but there are other ones that are contesting them and that are really organizing themselves to face and resist and openly resist platform power. And then we can go to the very end of the presentation. In frontiers of resistance, well, where there is power, there will always be resistance. This is something that we have found, and especially in what we found is that there is a common feature to all the practices we have observed. Algorithmic agency is rarely exercised in complete solitude, carried out by a single individual without the help or partial cooperation of some other person. Cooperation is the keyword.
Yeah.
So we found a lot of cooperation going on, even if these platforms are promoting individualistic and competition values and competition among users. And next one. Well, we try to synthesize all the practices that we have discovered in the fieldwork and we situated these real practices of everyday life onto our theoretical framework. You can go next. So what we argue is that what we are seeing is maybe a process that we already have seen at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
So continuities and similarities between the making of the industrial working class and the making of the platformized working class. We are not when we talk about platformization of platform capitalism, we are not talking of something different or something totally new. No, platform capitalism is industrial capitalism augmented by digital technologies, but is still capitalism. So we want to stress and to highlight the long durée of the industrialization process. Platformization is the last stage of the industrialization process that has begun with the Industrial Revolution. What we are witnessing is the platformization of labor, culture, politics, and this is a further step in this long process of industrialization. As workers and users are shaped by platformization, they also shape this process through various forms of resistance and agency. Next one.
I think
this is the last one, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So the very conclusion is that the goal of this book, just to sum up, to wrap up, the goal of this book was being primarily to show what these categories of users and digital laborers have in common. They have in common the ability to painstakingly improve their working conditions, organize forms of collective actions, and build solidarity bonds in the face of the disproportionate computational power wielded by tech companies and regardless of their situated class status. That's my conclusion.